back to the Conservative Cat Show, where common sense still has a voice, the Constitution still matters, and we don't bow down to these political fads. I've got a lot of stuff to cover this morning. Pride or pressure? The truth behind Pride Month. We're going to get to it here in just a second. I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are digging into something that has been shoved down your throat every single June. It's like clockwork. It's Pride Month. We're going to get to that. Plus, Minnesota Democrat Backtracks statements after admitting she was an illegal alien, and now she's claiming she's a citizen. I don't know. She may or may not be an illegal alien and serving in Congress. She's a Minnesota congressman, Democrat. So we're going to get to that. And tomorrow, Pritzker, Hochul, Tim Walz, they're all going to be held accountable. So they're supposed to go before an oversight committee. And these sanctuary states, I'm just going to be blunt, they're insurrectionists. The very premise of a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state, that is insurrection, that is domestic terrorism. You are preventing the federal enforcement of the law, federal law being enforced. So we're going to get to all of it. Promo code ConservativeCat at checkout, patriotpumpenergy.com. Use promo code ConservativeCat for $10 off. All right, let's talk about Pride Month. Wherever you turn, from your kids in schools to Target aisles to your military, there's rainbow flags everywhere, corporate virtue signaling, and drag queens reading stories to toddlers. And the media, they want you to think that if you don't stand up and cheer for this, you must be full of hate. And the complete opposite is true, actually. And I've got news for you folks. Disagreeing with Pride Month is not hate, it's just common sense. Let's dig into it. Pride Month it's not just about being yourself anymore. It is a full-blown political movement, and we're going to look at some facts because according to a report from 25 News, WEEK, some LGBTQ people in the community say that they feel intimidated by President Donald Trump's actions, like banning transgender individuals from the military or ending federal recognition for made-up genders and federal recognition for this holiday. Yes, the city of Bloomington, they officially, I can't believe this, they officially made June Pride Month at a city level. Signed off by, of course, Mayor Dan Brady. And I'm not too upset about this. I mean, the Lincoln mayor ran as a Republican in Bloomington elections. The city of Bloomington, there's nonpartisan elections. They weren't really run as nonpartisan elections. They sent out campaign mailers, but they're supposed to be run as nonpartisan elections. I'm not even that upset because Dan Brady, we all knew, he raised the gas tax in 2019, doubled that, and I'm never going to let that go because guess what? There were a ton of Republicans who voted to double your gas tax, and now it goes up every single year. Just automatically. They don't even have to come back to the table to talk about gas tax hikes because they're just built into this thing. So yeah, Dan Brady, I mean, I'm not even mad because he didn't technically run as a Republican in Bloomington for the mayoral spot there. I'd be mad if he did run as a Republican, like I am with the mayor of Lincoln, because he went to the Logan County Pride Coalition festival that happened in the downtown area. And it's one thing to allow these people access to the streets. They closed that down. Obviously, there was probably some sort of approval process at a government level for them to shut down the streets there in Logan County and Lincoln. But I take issue with that because the Republican platform, the Illinois Republican platform, is pretty clear about traditional family values. And although not universally achievable, we believe that children do best in a traditional family environment. That means one man, one woman in holy matrimony. Okay, that's what we believe as Republicans. That is the official Republican Party platform. So I wanted to get to this. Government recognizing that there is only two genders, male and female. It's not radical. It's biology. It's been this way for a very long time. And guess what? The military isn't some sort of social experiment lab. Okay. It's about readiness. It's about strength. It's about discipline. And a lot of these folks who are transgender statistically will kill themselves. Do we want people in the military who have to go through discipline and rigorous combat readiness They have to go through rigorous training. Do we really want somebody who's proven to be a group of people who have proven to be mentally unstable? They kill themselves at a rate that was higher than those who killed themselves at Auschwitz. The Jews killed themselves in Auschwitz. They kill themselves at a higher rate. It's absolutely wild. We know that the military isn't about pronouns, parades, and hormone shots. We know it's about readiness and strength. So we've got individuals like Alexander Martin, who is self-described as loud and proud transgender woman. He finally found his identity, and the country is, quote, holding her back. That's what he says about himself. I don't know. He uses she pronouns, she, her pronouns. I don't play that game. He literally is getting airtime with this media outlet. This is 25 WEEK. Okay, so when you claim that this whole country is holding you back, you're literally getting like press airtime to talk to you about your story. I don't know how oppressed you can be if you can tell the masses about your story and about who you are and how you're loud and proud. I don't know how oppressed you actually are, considering like not a lot of people get that opportunity to go out onto the media and to talk about themselves and how great they are, how proud they are. Not a lot of people get to do that, just in general. And you're claiming you're oppressed, but yet we're uplifting you in the media and you're getting airtime. So this is Alexander Martin, a self-described loud and proud transgender woman, aka men who dress up as women. Okay. This is a clip I got to play for you. And then we're going to get into what Bill Howder said, State Representative Bill Howder, and what he said about Pride Month. But let's take a listen. Here we go.
Proud transgender Black woman, but says her journey wasn't easy.
I've known from a young age that something within me just didn't resonate with cultural expectations.
For a long time, Alexander says she was trying to find herself, and for many years was trying to fit into multiple identities.
I don't feel the same. And so started exploring myself a little bit more. Started using the word queer to describe myself because it felt a little bit more accurate to where I was at.
Alexander says she isn't alone, as many within the LGBTQ plus community have felt the same way.
You can either choose to hide parts of that, which folks do for safety, or you can share it.
Since President Trump took office in January, he has signed inclusion initiatives targeting the LGBTQ plus community, with restrictions of transgender military service and pulling more than $125 million in health funding. Executive Director of Central Illinois Friends Derek Kimler says this is a direct target on those who are part of this country.
People who've signed up because they want to protect our nation, and they're told because of who they are, they can't.
Kimler says targeting the LGBTQ plus is a way for President Trump to gain support.
The folks that believe in every single word that man says, no matter what he says, they're dangerous to the LGBTQ plus community. And that's where the real concern comes in.
Republican State Representative Bill Howder says in a statement he approves President Trump's initiatives, saying, quote, "I genuinely support the administration's move to reduce or otherwise tone down so-called Pride Month observations. Pride Month has become another example of progressive outreach forcing recognition and celebration of increasingly radical political ideology that the government has every right, every duty to reject."
I'm so loud you can't deny it anymore. You can't fight it anymore or hold it back.
In Peoria, Gianna Zhao, 20.
All right. Let's be clear. Nobody's stopping anyone from living how they want. Okay. They say this transgender woman had said they conceal their identity for their safety. Why? Like, nobody is going after these people and committing homicide against transgender individuals. I've brought you the facts. I think it was in 2023, the numbers that I had pulled, there were like 30 homicides of transgender individuals, and none of them were due to them being transgender. they weren't hate crimes, as you would define hate crimes. They were targeted because they were in either occupations like drug dealing or prostitution. It was a lot of pimps who were killing transgender women or men, trans men. And it was a lot of people who were involved with drug dealing and died because of their occupation. Okay, so that's where all the homicides, like of all the transgender people in the United States, 30 of them died by homicide in 2023. Nobody died at the hands of somebody who targeted them simply because they were transgender. Pretty much all of the 30 people who died approximately in 2023, it was due to them and their occupation, drug dealing or prostitution. Okay, so State Representative Bill Howder said it best: Pride Month has become another example of progressive overreach, forcing recognition and celebration of an increasingly radical political ideology. Bake the damn cake or I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to cancel you. That's literally what Pride Month is. Pride isn't about tolerance, okay? It's about compliance. And if you're flying the rainbow flag, if you're not flying the rainbow flag, then you're deemed the enemy. That is what Pride Month is. If you say there's two genders, then you're labeled a bigot. If you say, hey, I don't think we should be having guys prance around in thongs and dress up as brat dolls for kids, then you're considered dangerous. Okay, so LGBTQ activists, they say that you're dangerous. One activist, Derek Kimmler, he said that, quote, folks that believe every single word that man, Donald Trump, it's like he can't even say his name, says are dangerous to the LGBTQ community. And that's where the real concern comes from. Look, you're not dangerous because you say there's two genders. This is something that people have said for centuries, like quite literally forever until this moment of time, since like 2020. And it's not dangerous to want your kids to be protected from sexualized content. Okay. What's dangerous is forcing this ideology on people, silencing the opposition, and calling this tolerance. It's not tolerance if you're silencing the opposition. The takeaway here, my fellow patriots, you don't have to apologize for your values. And good thing for Bill Howder, because Bill Howder, there's some Republicans out there who celebrate Pride. Bloomington officially made June Pride Month, and I get it. They ran as in nonpartisan elections. Dan Brady considered himself a Republican, at least at one point, because he was a Republican state legislator. But Republicans definitely should not be making Pride Month a thing. They definitely shouldn't be crafting laws or ordinances surrounding Pride Month, because the official Republican Party platform in Illinois is that we believe in traditional families, because that is what ultimately benefits society. And this is what bothers me so much, because if anybody's going to celebrate their sexuality, it ought to be heterosexual people. And you don't see this. If you were to want a heterosexual month, right, you'd be deemed a bigot, you'd be canceled, you'd be silenced. You'd be called a homophobe if you celebrated straight pride, or if you gave discounts to straight people only, you'd be accused of discrimination. If I wanted to go into the streets of Lincoln and downtown Lincoln, close up all of the streets and have a heterosexual Pride Month, now people don't do this because pride is a sin, and typically those who believe in things like faith, family, freedom, heterosexual couples who care about their kids and want to have kids, typically those people don't believe in pride or don't realize that pride is a sin. And it was actually the original sin. So outside of, well, it was the original sin, Adam and Eve. They wanted to be like God and take the fruit and have the knowledge of God. That's what the serpent told them. Oh, he just doesn't want you. God just doesn't want you to know everything that he does. If you eat this, then you'll be like God. And it's a thing of pride. Right? That's a sin of pride. But also Lucifer, a fallen angel, his original sin was pride as well. And that's why he fell, because he was the worship leader, was an angel that circled the throne of God, was the worship leader, led worship of God, and then ultimately said, you know what, I'm like a lead singer, and why would I worship God? I could be God himself, and I deserve all of this. I'm loud, I'm proud. That was the original sin that caused Lucifer to fall. So a lot of people, typically heterosexual Christian couples, who take issue with this kind of stuff, they would never be out and proud about their heterosexuality. Why? Because it's a sin. Just plain and simple. It's a sin. But say there was straight pride, that would actually make a little bit of sense. Okay. If you were to sin and take pride in your heterosexuality, which you don't see heterosexual people typically doing, but if they were to do that, that would make some sense, because the reason why Republicans believe that traditional family, a child does well in a traditional household where there's a man and a woman who are married. The reason why that's the official Illinois Republican platform, by the way, is because it is beneficial for society. These people were obviously born in some way, right? And they have heterosexual parents. We populate the earth. Heterosexuals populate the earth. And there's quite literally something, you could have a feeling of pride, maybe not be prideful, but you can feel proud of your family and contributing to society, that, hey, we're populating the earth, and that is actually something of value. And I'm sorry, but your homosexual lifestyle does not benefit society in any kind of way. It would only benefit you, because you're not populating the earth. In fact, homosexual practices, and this is just a fact, lead to diseases like AIDS. Okay, this is just a fact. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers really with this, but it's just a fact, and that's a strain on our resources. Doesn't mean that we don't treat people with AIDS. Doesn't mean that. But I'm just going to be honest, that is actually detrimental to society, because now we have to address a symptom of homosexual practices, which would be AIDS. Also, the LGBTQ community, as I said, there's a very peculiar rise in suicidal thoughts and mental health issues in this community. That's resources that we have to dedicate to this community to make sure that they don't kill themselves and to keep them alive. So really, you could argue homosexuality is a strain on society, not only on society, but themselves, in that you could possibly develop a physical disease and you're more likely to be mentally ill. All of that takes the resources, the time, the talent, the treasure of somebody else to provide you services, to provide you health services. And I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm just saying that this is not something to be prideful of. This is not something to be proud of. This is something that only benefits you. And why would you be proud of something that only benefits you? It's kind of selfish. I got to shift gears. I'm going to shift gears here to this real doozy of a story. Minnesota. This is the land of 10,000 contradictions. So Kaoli Her, she's a representative, a congresswoman, and she's from Minnesota. St. Paul, I think, is where she's from. She dropped this bombshell on the Minnesota House floor this week, or at least she thought she did. It was a bombshell where she actually said, I'm quoting her, "I'm illegal in this country, and my parents are here illegally in this country as well." So she actually said this. I'm going to pull this up because now she's backtracking. And we're going to get to that here in just a second. But she actually said this. I've got the tape. I'm going to roll it. It's not a lie. Here we go.
And I said, wow, what luck of ours. And my mom said it wasn't luck. We did not have our names on that list to come to the U.S. because even though your grandfather worked for the CIA, and because there was no, like, if you were a child of somebody worked for the CIA, the only people that had names to come to the U.S. were if you were in the direct military and you worked for the CIA, or you worked for USAID. And which is why it's so personal to me that USAID is getting unfunded. But we did not do either one of those. My parents' Christian organization did not count. And so what my father did was, one of our uncles worked for USAID. And because his mother had died, my father, as the one processing the paperwork, put my grandmother down as his mother. And so I am illegal in this country. My parents are illegal here in this country. And when we were fleeing that situation, never one time did my family say, let's look at which state has the greatest welfare and which state has the greatest benefits, because that's the state we're going to go to. Nobody leaves their country unless they have to leave that country.
Okay. Where do we start? Let me pause for a second. You're telling me that an elected representative in Minnesota, in the Minnesota House, stood on the floor and claimed to be here illegally. What? And not only that, she seemed to be proud of it. You saw what she had said, I'm here illegally, my parents were here, and all this to make a point about healthcare for illegal immigrants. So let's call this what this is, folks. It's emotional manipulation disguised as a sob story. So Representative Her, okay, she wasn't just making a policy argument here, okay? She was weaponizing her identity, and she was trying to throw Republicans on a guilt trip out of doing their job, which is simply to protect the taxpayer, the border, and the law, okay? So she was arguing that adults without legal status, which means illegal immigrants, should get taxpayer-funded healthcare. That's what she was doing in Minnesota. And when Republicans pushed back against that, she told a story, and by her own admission, she admitted that this wasn't even true. She told a story about her being actually an illegal immigrant. And I don't know what this was. I think it was just identity politics on full display, and she was trying to emotionally manipulate Republicans. But she did all of this to try to make a point about illegal immigrants having taxpayer-funded healthcare. So she told a story. It wasn't even true. The internet lit up, and the American people were asking the very reasonable question, whoa, wait a second. How is someone who's illegally here serving in our government as a congressman? Okay, so how is somebody here illegally and serving our country in government? That was what Americans were asking. And Hochul, her, she suddenly remembered after all the internet lit up and people were asking this question. She goes, oh, sorry, I forgot, okay, that I am actually a citizen. I just forgot for a second, and I admitted it on the House floor for no reason. So she came to the U.S. as a refugee from Laos. Her parents were naturalized, and she became a citizen when she was in middle school. So she later admitted that. She later backtracked her statement about her being illegal, about her parents being illegal. She said that she became a U.S. refugee, or she was a U.S. refugee from Laos. Her parents were naturalized, which is different than an illegal immigration status, and she was actually deemed a citizen while she was in middle school. Okay, if that's true, then why claim to be illegal on the House floor? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. So why tell the world that your family, was just smarter in how we came here illegally? So that's what I'm quoting her. She says, we were just smarter in how we illegally came here. What? This is the progressive playbook, my friends. It's on full display. They confuse the language. They use words like immigrant rather than illegal immigrant. They stir up emotion. They avoid the facts. This was no mistake. It was actually calculated political theater. I know exactly what she was doing. She was trying to sway votes by casting herself as a victim, not because it was true. Nothing she said was true, by the way. By her own admission, she says, oh, actually, I am a citizen. I just forgot. But because it was a victim narrative, and that's the left's golden ticket. They want to be victims, and that's their golden ticket. They say things like no human is illegal, and they push policies that ignore our laws and punish legal citizens. So why should you care? This is modern politics, okay? This is what it has become. Elected officials, they play these identity politics and these identity political games, and they pass bloated policies that benefit non-citizens while you foot the bill. That's why it matters to you, because this is what politics is now. It's all about identity politics, and this is what it has become. And Instead of protecting your borders, they protect feelings. And instead of honoring truth, they lie and they weaponize confusion. And instead of serving you, the lawful American, they serve an agenda built on guilt, shame, and emotional blackmail. That's really what this was. It was just to get the Republicans to be like, oh man, is she actually illegal? Oh man, we should probably pass healthcare if our sitting representatives are here illegally and they're representing, which doesn't even make sense. How is that even possible? But the bigger picture here is Representative Her's backtracked. And this proves one thing very loud, very clear. She either lied to manipulate the public and manipulate her colleagues, her Republican colleagues, into trying to vote for health care for all illegal immigrants, or she was incredibly reckless with her words. Either way, she's not fit to lecture anyone on integrity, empathy, public policy. She's either a straight up liar or she's reckless with her words, and it causes confusion. She's not fit for office, this person. If she is a citizen, which I don't know now, I wasn't really questioning whether we had non-citizens serving in Congress or not, but if she is a citizen, she should have never claimed that she wasn't and that she was illegal for political gain. That's really what she was doing. And if she was illegal, how the hell did she get elected without raising any kind of alarm bells? Okay, either way, this answer is unacceptable. Okay, you can't sit there and lie about your status for political gain, and you can't sit there and be illegal and represent citizens you swear to take an oath to, or you take an oath for the American citizens. You have to be a citizen. This is why the truth matters, folks. This is why words matter. And this is why elections matter, because too many politicians today would rather lie with a smile and lead with a spine. They want to lie right through their teeth with a smile. They've got no spine. This is a conservative cat show. I'm calling it out. No spin, no safe spaces. This is just common sense with claws. We are going to be getting into another story here, the war on the border. And I want to get into how this was waged from within. And you might be thinking, okay, Kat's going to talk about the insurrectionists, the nonprofits who are paying these people who are flying the Mexican flag and the Los Angeles riots. It turns out there's riots in Chicago as well. Dallas, Texas, they're happening everywhere now. I told you that remember a couple of years ago when I talked about sleeper cells, this could be what we wind up seeing. A couple of years ago, I talked about this, where they call them sleeper cells, and they're domestic terrorists, and they're in these major cities. And then one day they're just going to take over these major cities. And it's an insurrection. They're going to try to take over these foreign nationals. Now, I think some of them are foreign nationals. Some of them are paid operatives by nonprofit organizations. Clearly, this is organized. There was passing out of masks, like visors. There was passing those out, and they were in the little boxes similar to that of the college campuses, where there were Palestinian protesters on these college campuses. We tracked that back to, of course, the Tides Foundation, the Adala Justice Project, which, has ties to the Pritzker family. The Adala Justice Project, there were people there who were arrested in, I think it was St. Louis. There was a college there. And really what goes on is these nonprofits pay these people to go protest. It's organized. They give these people resources. And this is the very definition of insurrection, where there is organization. You're providing aid and comfort to enemies, and their goal is to take over the government and to prohibit the enforcement of our laws. It's exactly what's going on here. Now, our politicians today, they are waging the war from within. So I'm not really even talking about the foreign invaders, the people who are paid by these nonprofit organizations to go out there and protest. Not even really talking about those people. I'm going to be talking about our very own governors and their sanctuary state policies, because I think that reaches the level of insurrection. because I mean, I'll just read the insurrection definition here. On the other side, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. Subscribe to the channel right now if you're not subscribed. That really helps me out. And follow me on Rumble and like the Facebook page. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we don't tiptoe. No. We stomp with the facts. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're talking about immigration, not the fairy tale version, but the real story. So buckle up. Let's rewind. Yes, America is a nation of immigrants, sure. But guess what else? We're a nation of laws. Okay, so from the get-go, we welcomed immigrants, folks who played by the rules, brought their skills, worked hard, and wanted to become an American and participate in our culture here, not just use America. So for over 200 years, we had rules, a process. You applied, you waited, and you earned your place. That's not xenophobia, that's order, by the way. And then enter in the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. That was a big turning point. It ditched the merit-based entry and it opened the floodgates for chain migration. This is where you, your grandkids, and your grandkids' dog and cousin can come over just because you're here. Okay, from there, it was a race to be the most compassionate. Okay, who could be the most compassionate? And the Democrats raced to create legislation and tried to virtue signal that they were the most compassionate, aka compassionate means reckless. Okay, so fast forward to 2021, under the Biden administration, it was a full-on border circus, over 8 million illegal border crossings, 2.4 million in just 2023 alone under Joe Biden's watch. Entire cities were being overwhelmed. Remember Springfield, Ohio. And instead of fixing it, the left is just handing out hotel rooms, driver's licenses here in the state of Illinois, health insurance coverage, and voting rights. There was an actual immigrant. I forget where he was from. I think he was a Venezuelan immigrant or something. He got to vote in the Chinese. He was a Chinese national and he got to vote in our elections. And it's just like we're throwing this out like candy at a parade for all of these illegal immigrants. And you know, who's paying for all of this? You are. Taxpayers are footing the bill. The housing, the healthcare costs, and American vets, meanwhile, are sleeping under bridges, and middle-class families can't afford eggs. Okay, so let's not forget about the security crisis either, okay, because that's a big part of this as well. Terror watch lists, encounters were at record highs. Fentanyl was pouring over the border, flooding the border. And the cartels were alive and well under the Biden administration. They were thriving under Joe Biden's open door policy. But sure, let's talk about humanitarian values. Kids are being trafficked over the border by smugglers. And, oh, yeah, this is the most humanitarian thing to do. Give me a break. The future, it's on the line. Because either we enforce our laws or we lose the meaning of citizenship altogether. And that's what the left's ultimate goal is to hell with sovereignty, to hell with citizenship. Immigration can be good if it's legal and it's controlled and it's fair immigration. But here comes the other turning point. So in 1965, we had a turning point, and that's where everybody was just starting to race to be the most compassionate, aka everybody was just being reckless. But Trump 2025, this is another turning point. So he is, not just talking about a wall, but he is talking about a hammer. He's come down with his border czar, Tom Homan. Under the Trump administration's new immigration plan, he promised to deliver the largest, and he has, deportation operation in U.S. history. And we're talking about detention centers, fast track removals. That guy who threatened Donald Trump to assassinate him, he was an illegal immigrant, came into the country 9 times illegally, broke into the country 9 times between 1998 and I think it was 2005. Boy. So the left is going to cry racism. We know this, but Trump's plan is really about this: sovereignty. Okay, not skin color. It's about sovereignty and having a nation with borders. Really, what the left wants is to do away with sovereignty. Donald Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended Biden's abuse of asylum loopholes. And you want to come here? Great, do it legally. And you got to be, even legal immigrants have got to want to be American. Okay, they've got to want to conform to the culture. And we can't take anymore. Okay, we just can't. The blue state mayors are even screaming, we can't take anymore, because it's a strain on our resources, and we really have to be selective now with our immigration. This has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that borders are not racist. They're responsible. Laws don't make you cruel. They make you civilized. Let's fix immigration. Let's do it the American way, the legal way, orderly and fair.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors. Men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat, and here we call it out. There's no spin. There's no safe spaces. It's just common sense with Claus. Today, we're talking about the war from within. It's a war that's been waged from within. And yes, there are foreign invaders. Yes, these nonprofit organizations have been weaponized, and they're paying people to do these protests. We saw it, the same thing happen on our college campuses with the Palestinian protesters. Remember all the green tents? Yeah, well, they're passing out visors. Those same nonprofit organizations, they're passing out visors to these protesters who are burning down cities, quite literally. I do want to talk about the definition of insurrection, but there's a war that's been waged from within here by not just the foreign invaders, okay, but our very own governors. And I'm going to talk about specifically Governor Tim Walz, J.B. Pritzker, and Kathy Hochul today. So insurrection is defined by our law. Insurrection refers to any act of rising against authority of the state or its laws. Legally, this one is about violence. I think rebellion would probably be more so what the governors are doing, because there's not a violent act, but you could make the argument that sanctuary state policies, that's insurrection because it's an act of rising against authority of the state, of the nation, its federal immigration laws. So there has been a violent uprising against government authority here and against our federal laws in Los Angeles, now in Chicago, Dallas, Texas. It's spreading. The infection is spreading, and they're taking up arms, and they're actively opposing the government's power and lawful authority. Okay, they have a lawful authority. This is federal law that we're a country with borders. We're supposed to have sovereignty, and we're supposed to enforce those federal immigration laws. So over this past weekend, chaos erupted out of Los Angeles. Violent protests have filled the cities with left-wing activists, often paid by nonprofit organizations. Like, clearly this is organized, okay? And there's been in Bloomington rallies every single weekend, and these are obviously organized. There's big nonprofits behind a lot of these riots, protests. There's been protests every other weekend in Bloomington, right there by the BCPA. And there's tantrums being thrown because, God forbid, we arrest a criminal illegal alien and we deport them and ICE deports them. Okay. God forbid that happens. These are not hardworking, law-abiding immigrants. These are criminal, illegal aliens who came through an illegal port of entry and did not seek a work visa, student visa, H-1B visa, whatever it is, naturalization. So the real story isn't just about the rioters on the ground. And I don't want us to forget that there is a huge problem with these governors, these so-called leaders. Governors like Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Minnesota's Tim Walz, and of course, New York Governor Kathy Hochul. They are not just failing their citizens, they're actively obstructing federal government's ability to enforce federal immigration law. I would say that this reaches a level of insurrection or rebellion. Okay, sanctuary state, the very premise of the sanctuary state policy, this is insurrection-y, if not just rebellion. There are legal definitions to this. You could make the argument any act is any act. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a violent one. But they're actively obstructing federal government's ability to enforce immigration law. So the House Oversight Committee, what they're going to be doing is holding a hearing tomorrow, June 12th, to finally demand answers from these governors. Why? Because sanctuary state policies have turned enforcement on its head. It's become impossible to enforce federal law in these communities, in these states. So here's what sanctuary states do. They ban local police from cooperating with ICE. They refuse to hold criminal illegals in jail for federal agents. In some cases, like in Illinois, they've cut ties with federal immigration almost entirely. So what's a great idea? Let's tell ICE to take a hike while we give illegals driver's licenses. This has happened in Illinois. It's happened in Minnesota. We'll give them legal protection. Like I said, ICER, the Immigration Project in Normal, Illinois, they've received millions of dollars of payments, vendor payments. You can look these up. Just look up the nonprofit by their EIN number. You can plug it into the comptroller's site, and you'll see all of the payments to these nonprofit organizations that specialize in legal protection, which means your taxpayer dollars are paying for illegal aliens representation in these blue states. And they're getting taxpayer-funded benefits. This isn't even like hiding it, okay? Quite literally, it was crafted in this last year's budget, this past budget that was just passed. They crafted it and they took out one little part about providing illegal aliens healthcare, like ages 42 to 65 or something like that. They took that part out and only gave it to illegal immigrants who are 65 and older. So they're getting taxpayer-funded benefits. What could possibly go wrong? We're not going to work with ICE. We're going to tell them to take a hike. We're going to give illegals driver's license. We're going to provide them legal protection. We're going to give them taxpayer benefits. I don't know about you, but this is starting to look very much like a rebellion of the United States. You're rebelling against the United States, and you're prohibiting the federal law enforcement from doing its job and enforcing immigration law. I don't know about you, but it's pretty clear that this is either a rebellion or an insurrection. Sanctuary state policies, just in general, I think, reach the level of insurrection. So let's talk about these governors one by one. Let's start with Governor J.B. Pritzker. He took Bruce Rauner's, his 2017 law. So Bruce Rauner, he had this law. It was called the Trust Act. Now, the way I read the Trust Act still, even in 2017, I'm not even entirely against this. The 2017 Trust Act, what it says is that, hey, civil issues, you can't help local police, you can't help federal authorities when it comes to civil issues. So what does that mean? Maria, she works at Rivian. She's here on a work visa, and her work visa expires, and the federal authorities are like, I think her work visa has expired. She hasn't applied for a new one, and she no longer is working at Rivian, and she's in violation of her work visa, whatever. Okay. So the federal authorities come and they go to the local sheriff, McLean County Sheriff, where Rivian is at. Okay. And then they say, hey, we think Maria overstayed her work visa and she's not meeting the terms of her work visa. Can you go pick her up for us so we can question her? The local sheriff shouldn't have to do that. Okay. You need to go pick up Maria, and you need to enforce and verify that, yes, she is in violation of her work visa. Now, definitively, if you have figured that out and you've conducted an investigation, maybe you went to Rivian and you did your own investigation, you figured out Maria is in violation of her work visa or not in agreement, and you figure that out and you say, hey, we're going to deport Maria. Here's a deportation order. She's in violation of her work visa. We're going to go pick her up, and can you go pick her up? That's different than them trying to figure out if she's in violation of her work visa. It's very different. And, I understand we can't be dedicating our local resources to the feds and helping them make a case against Maria and having them investigate these issues. That's why we have immigration authorities. That's why we have ICE. That's their job, and that should be very clearly defined. And that's kind of what the 2017, at least the way I read it, the Trust Act. Now, Democrats, they played around with this law. They tweaked it a little bit. And I think the way some people interpret it, they say, local law enforcement can't communicate with ICE at all. That's the way the Illinois Democrats see the Trust Act now, that they cannot talk to ICE at all. And if a cop finds out somebody's here illegally, they're banned from telling the feds. That's what the tweaks to the Trust Act. So former Governor Bruce Rauner, there was some 2017 Trust Act. They made it even worse a couple of years ago, I think it was at this point. And some people interpret it now with those changes that you can't even, if you find out. So, for example, the local sheriff in McLean County, if he went to Maria's house for a domestic dispute, her and her boyfriend got into a fight, and he asked her for identification, and he found out that she was here in this country illegally. Maria was here in this country illegally. He is prohibited in the state of Illinois from telling the federal government that, hey, I responded to a domestic violence call. Maria and her boyfriend got into a fight, and I found out that she's an illegal immigrant. So they've taken the ability for the cop to tell the feds about criminal activity. Okay. So that's the way people I don't interpret the Trust Act that way. The 2017 Trust Act, I go by the original Trust Act. But people are interpreting it that way. Local law enforcement is interpreting that way. And it's insurrection if you interpret it that way. Local law enforcement should be telling the feds if they come across somebody with an illegal status, they should be holding them, detaining them until ICE can get there. They should be cooperating with the feds once there's a legal deportation order drafted up. And I totally agree with this idea that, hey, we can't have the feds come in and have our local sheriffs and our local police do their groundwork and pretty much do their bitch work for them. Okay. Totally against that. I think that is right. I mean, there is some validity here to that 2017 Trust Act. I'm not totally against it. I think that local law enforcement shouldn't have to go and investigate to find out if Maria is in violation of her work visa. That's on ICE. And once they figure that out and they come to a conclusion, they take all that investigation to a deportation judge. A deportation judge says, okay, here's your deportation order. They take that order to the local police. The local police then are, by law, supposed to work with ICE because there's criminal activity going on. Okay, the investigation has already been conducted. The deportation order has already been made up. So let's go to Tim Walz of Minnesota, who decided that illegal immigrants similar to that of Illinois, they get driver's licenses. So in Illinois, that's the same thing. So not green cards, not a legal status. You can skip all of that and you can just hit the road in Minnesota. So Tim Walz is going to have to answer for that. In New York in 2017, there was something similar. So you know how Governor Bruce Rauner, he had that Trust Act. Governor Andrew Cuomo at the time in 2017, he did something very similar. He prevented state law enforcement from providing immigration information for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement, unless required by law. Like I said, that is not even necessarily all that bad. Where it gets tricky is if you're not willing to work with the feds when there's obviously criminal enforcement, like there's criminality, or we've proven that Maria is a criminal and she is here and she's overstayed her visa. Okay. Or she's in violation of her agreement with her visa. She's no longer working at Rivian, which means we have to deport Maria. Once they get that investigation sealed up, given to a judge, the judge does the deportation order, boom. End of story. Local police, you have to comply with that. So let's be crystal clear. This isn't about race. It's not about race because there's immigrants, there's Chinese immigrants, there's Chinese foreign nationals, there's it knows no color. Okay, there is no race element to this at all. Venezuelans, a lot of Venezuelans appear to be white. They're going to try to say that, oh, Donald Trump's racist, he's a bigot, he hates immigrants because their skin color. And it's just like, wait a second. This isn't anything about hating immigrants or race. This is about the rule of law. And America is a nation of immigrants, legal immigrants. Okay. And immigrants who particularly like America. Okay. So we have to be very selective, and you might grow impatient when you're trying to obtain a legal status because it is a very involved process, because America should be selective in who we bring over here. Okay. We should have the best, the brightest, and people who particularly like America and want to conform to the culture and want to take on this culture and not bring their culture here. Should be a very selective process. So these sanctuary state governors, they're doing everything they can to turn the federal law into a joke, and they're putting citizens in danger, by the way. So when ICE arrests someone who's committed a crime, particularly drug trafficking or worse, human trafficking, human smuggling, local law enforcement is banned sometimes in these sanctuary states. It really depends on how you interpret the law. If I was local law enforcement and I was in one of these states, I'd be like, no, screw you. I am going to be following federal law because I don't want to get charged with insurrection. I don't want to get charged with rebellion. There are legal definitions to these things, and local law enforcement, they should understand that there's no ban that the state can pass that would prohibit you from helping law enforcement when there's a degree of criminality. Okay, that's your job as local law enforcement, as an enforcement body. You're supposed to follow the law, federal, state, and local laws. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, if there's a state law that runs counter to the federal law, you kind of got to make your decision, I guess, of what's more important. And I think these sanctuary state policies, they are in violation of the federal law, and it should have never been passed. And it's just bogus. It's insurrection. It's rebellion, the policy itself. So this is not compassion, not helping federal authorities police criminality. Okay, it's just negligence, and local law enforcement should be helping the federal government despite being in a sanctuary state, because these state laws run afoul to the federal law, which existed prior. Okay. So the first duty of government is to protect its citizens, not shield those who violate our laws once they get here. And they violate our laws while like them being here is a violation of our law. And then they commit more crimes on top of that once they've arrived. Like, you got to be kidding me. There's no reason for you not to fulfill your duty, which is to protect the citizenry. Thankful to Republicans in Congress, James Comer is stepping in. Representative James Comer, the hearing is going to be beginning tomorrow This is all about accountability, and these governors are going to have to explain to the American people why they chose to protect illegal aliens over the citizens. And you can't hide behind identity politics anymore. Sorry, that's a dumb excuse. This isn't about racism. Look at the people who are being arrested and detained by ICE. I see all kinds of types of people being arrested. There is no particular race being targeted. So these federal agents are simply doing their job, and that is to protect the American people. My closing thoughts here. A nation without borders is not a nation at all. We are supposed to be a sovereign nation. America has always stood tall because we are land of law and order. Sanctuary states are an insult to every legal immigrant, by the way, who waited in line, followed the rules, and earned their place. It's a very selective process for a good reason. And if Pritzker, Hochul, Walz, they want to put ideology before integrity, they need to really be ready to face the consequences for that, the political consequences, possibly. And I think, Gavin Newsom providing aid, abetting our foreign enemies and allowing our foreign enemies to take over the government and really usurp our laws. I think that they've all reached at least some degree of insurrection or rebellion in some sort of way with these policies and implementing these policies and signing their names onto some of these laws. Because the American people are waking up to this thing. And I think we're done being silent because our cities are burning. Our laws are being ignored. This is like an 80-20, 70-30 issue. Most everybody wants to see, and this is why Donald Trump won. He received more than half the votes. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we are going to be back. Michael Madigan's Millions, Secrecy, Sentencing, and the Swamp of Springfield. We're going to get to it here because I like to tear into Illinois corruption like a tomcat in a chicken coop. I really do like to tear into Illinois corruption. So we're going to be talking about House Speaker Michael Madigan. And then I do want to talk about this story from Anchor, Illinois. Anchor is a very, very small town. This small town should have a very big wake-up call considering this story. And you're just going to have to wait to find out what it's all about. Speaker Mike Johnson, he had this eye roll about Maxine Waters, and it really just said it all. There was an eye roll. He was asked a question by a reporter about crazy Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters wants to convince you that, hey, don't believe what your eyes are showing you on social media, where all these videos show cop cars burning, people throwing bricks at police officers. Don't believe any of that because it's not happening. Okay, I guess I shouldn't believe my eyes and what my eyes are showing me and telling me. So Speaker Mike Johnson, he had this incredible eye roll and it was caught on tape. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I'm going to be right back. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And They're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson. Regional directors, they make about like six figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way, Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois. What do you think?
You ever tried to explain your faith to someone who doesn't get it? Like you're speaking a different language? Peter knew that tension. He told believers to live such good lives among the pagans that even if they accused them of doing wrong, they'd see their lives and end up glorifying God. Translation: let your life preach louder than your lips. It's not weakness. That's warfare. You don't always need a microphone. You need integrity. You need consistency. You need to grind with grit and grace when no one's cheering. People are watching how you handle stress, how you treat your wife, how you react when life sucker punches you. They're watching to see if your God is real because your walk is the evidence. You don't get to control what they say, but you can live in a way that shuts lies down over time. Let your honesty wreck stereotypes. Let your discipline echo louder than their gossip. Let your kindness feel like a gut punch to a world used to selfish men. Because one day, maybe not now, maybe not soon, those same people who laughed at your faith might remember your life when they hit rock bottom. And when they do, they'll know who to call. Live like someone's eternity might depend on it, because it might. You want a pre-workout that speaks for itself? Patriot Pump doesn't need hype, just results. Clean energy, no crash, built for men who lead by example, on the platform or in the shadows. Fuels what matters. Train for legacy.
Good morning. Hey, I'm Conservative Cat, the only place where you tear into Illinois corruption. I tear into it like a tomcat in a chicken coop. So I'm your host, and we're shining a very, very big blinding spotlight on Michael Madigan. So this is a very dark corner of Illinois politics, and Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan, he slithered around for like half a century. So let's not mince words. Michael Madigan wasn't just a politician. He was the politician. He was the kingpin of the Illinois machine. And now he's facing sentencing for 10 years. Or he's facing sentencing for 10 federal felony convictions. I don't know how many years he's going to get. We'll have to see. Probably his lawyers, his team, they're trying to get no jail time. They're trying to get like an ankle monitor. He's 83 years old. I'm sorry, but you being old doesn't excuse your behavior, and it doesn't excuse you from jail time. So he's got 10 federal felony convictions, bribery, wire fraud, conspiracy. And you would think transparency would finally win in the end of at the end of the day, right? You'd be like, okay, he's being charged, and transparency is finally winning. No, wrong, because this week a federal judge sealed Michael Madigan's net worth from public view. That's right, a man who reportedly raked in over $1 million every year, amassed a fortune of around $40 million, and wielded unchecked power over Illinois for decades, now has this big old privacy curtain, and we can't see what his net worth is, the public, you and I. We can't view it. So Judge Jack Blakey said sealing Madigan's net worth was mostly symbolic. Okay, that was according to the Center Square. But symbolic of what exactly there, Judge? Symbolic of how far the justice system will bend to protect the elites? Or symbolic of how corruption, even after a conviction, still walks in the halls of our courtrooms? I mean, he's got a conviction. Like, what do you mean we're sealing his net worth? So prosecutors made it very clear that his net worth actually matters. It's relevant when considering how large of a fine he should face, because he's got to pay a fine. They want him to pay $1.5 million. Prosecutors obviously are asking for much more than that. It's relevant when you're trying to destroy the fantasy that his crimes were somehow altruistic, like unselfish. This is what the defense is claiming, which is just a laughable claim that, it wasn't a crime of greed or selfishness. He was just doing it because he was being unselfish and he was trying to help, so this is just totally like, his net worth is relevant because if a man with $40 million still chooses to bribe, defraud, that is not desperation, okay? And that this was not an act of selfishness. This is clearly, quite possibly, an act of greed. The net worth does matter here, and the prosecutors have made that clear that his net worth matters because it's depends on what kind of fine he should face. It's relevant when you're trying to destroy the fantasy that his crimes were somehow unselfish and were altruistic. Totally laughable. So Madigan's defense has called that information not like gratuitous. So it doesn't matter. They're saying that his net worth doesn't matter. And I don't know, like the people of Illinois who've been footing the bill for all of the backroom deals don't have the right to know how much their pain profited him. Okay, so they're trying to say, oh, it doesn't matter. The net worth doesn't have any sort of relevance to this case. And I don't know about you, but we've been footing the bill, and I want to know just how much my pain and the taxpayers, pain. I just want to know how much that pain profited him. Let's zoom out for a second. If you don't know a whole lot about Michael Madigan, he served in the House from 1971 all the way to 2021. That's 50 years, folks. It's a long time. He was the Speaker of the House for nearly all of it. The chairman of the Democrat Party, by the way, for Illinois for 23 years. So he wasn't just a public servant. He was part of a political cartel, and he was in a tailored suit. Okay, that's really what this was, Michael Madigan. And all of it, all that power, all that money, it was greased with corruption, bribes through Commonwealth Edison, ComEd, to the tune of hundreds of millions in benefits, according to testimony. There was testimony provided, so I'm not lying here. ComEd admitted to at least $150 million. Others say the real value could top $750 million over a decade. Who knows? I don't know how much. I mean, this is just crazy amount of bribes and corruption that had happened. And what did Madigan get in return? Influence, kickbacks, control over contracts, favors, legislative muscle. And all of this is court record, by the way. The jury convicted him back in February on 10 counts. So he's a convicted criminal. He's just awaiting sentencing. And yet somehow here we are debating if he should pay $1.5 million in a fine and if that's too much. And they've sealed his Now, this is crazy to me. The State House Minority Leader, Tony McComey, she pointed out that Madigan has more than enough money. But it gets better because he still may have campaign cash left, and that money could be used for his legal defense. Okay, so that's right. Campaign dollars raised under the premise of serving the people, and we're campaigning. This money could be used to fight these criminal charges, and it could have been used. And McComey, she had talked about how they proposed a bill to stop this sort of abuse. That was House Bill 1554. But surprise, surprise, the Democrat-run legislature buried this. Why? Because the system built by Madigan still protects Madigan. Okay, the system Madigan built is protecting itself, and it still lives on, and it still feeds off your tax dollars. Now, maybe not so much ComEd. What we're doing is interesting, where we're taking tax dollars and we're providing grants to nonprofits, and people are serving as executive directors for these nonprofits and taking salaries of over $250,000 typically. So, the corruption still exists. Maybe it's not like ComEd anymore, but it's definitely still there. And then in turn, these nonprofits with halos and hashtags donate to those campaign coffers of the Democrats who sign off on all these grants to give to them and their nonprofit organizations. So, it's still going on. Okay, this is why it matters. So Madigan is scheduled to be sentenced this Friday, and Chicago prosecutors have been asked to drop their $3.1 million ask. So they had asked for that and in a fine. And now they're asking anywhere between $1.5 million to $2.5 million in a fine for him to pay. That is a drop in a bucket for a guy like this who lived as a king while the taxpayers struggled. Okay. You're struggling. You're putting up. So, for example, I know more about what's gone on today than what was going on, back when Michael Madigan was Speaker of the House and doing bribes with ComEd. But with the nonprofit organizations, I see this kind of stuff happen all the time. They're taking taxpayer money, they're providing it to these nonprofit organizations, and a lot of these people are Democrat friends. And what they'll turn around and then they'll donate that to their campaign. So, your tax money is keeping these people in office. And nobody says anything about this. This is straight up corruption. This is abuse. And you're footing the bill, and you're struggling, and people are getting rich. They've got campaign coffers so deeper than the potholes in this state. Okay. So let me ask you something. If a man can sit in office for 50 years, take millions, rig the system for his friends, shake down a public utility, get convicted on 10 felonies, and keep his fortune sealed, campaign money untouched, and receive hundreds of character letters from the elite, is that really justice? At the end of the day, I don't think that this guy is actually getting any kind of justice, because he had all kinds of character letters from the elitists here that operate Illinois still today. He's got 10 felonies. He's got his campaign money's untouched. I don't know about you, but this just seems more of like the Illinois way. I don't even know if he's going to see the inside of a jail cell. We'll have to see come Friday. But Tony McComey, she said it best. You can't put a number on how much this costs the citizens. She's right. The cost of corrupt utility rates because ComEd backroom deals, the cost of crony contracts that bankrupt small businesses, because you award contracts to businesses, to unions, contracts who you award those contracts to the union guys who will turn around and donate to your campaign. And hey, I'll award you this contract if you donate to my campaign a little bit later. I don't know the cost of these crony contracts and what kind of overall cost that has on small businesses that can bankrupt small businesses, because that's totally unfair. And the cost of a system where honesty gets you shut down and corruption gets you promoted. That's really what it is. So, if you are a small business, maybe a small contractor, and, you make a bid on a government contract to build a road here in the state, and they pass you over because, they know that you're not going to donate a big hefty donation to their campaign. and you don't get the contract because you're not willing to compromise your values, you're not willing to lie, and you're not willing to destroy your integrity, you get shut down and you don't get the contract. You have to work 10 times harder. You have to struggle. Meanwhile, the union guy who says, oh, yeah, I'll donate to your campaign if you award us our contracts. They get promoted. They get all the money. They're making more and more money. Then they're donating more and more money, and everybody's getting rich but you. So this isn't about Madigan. It's about a culture. Okay. It's rot. And they've just kind of changed it up a little bit. Maybe it's not so much, and the unions still exist, the union bosses who donate to the campaigns, and then they wind up getting the contracts. That all still happens. But there's this new thing that's gone on. And I really think that we're sleeping on this nonprofit thing, because they're doing it, but they're doing it behind halos and hashtags, like, oh, nonprofits, these are commendable. These are very righteous people who are doing said social justice, said mission. Okay. And we're going to give them all kinds of grants to do it. Like they got smart, I guess, and they're doing something a little bit different, but not really. And this is not about Madigan. This is about the land of Lincoln turning into the land of lies. That's really, and at the end of the day, we deserve better. We should demand better. Michael Madigan might finally face prison. I don't know if he's going to see the inside of a jail cell. His defense, the defense is trying to push for ankle monitor because he's old. But unless we deal with the system that let him flourish, the loopholes, the weak ethic laws, the rubber stamping the insiders club, right? We're going to see another Michael Madigan rise and take his place. That's really what's ultimately going to happen. We have to change this culture. We have to deal with the system that let him flourish. Illinois needs to stop being a punchline. Oh, that's one of the most corrupt states in the nation. And I don't know how we do this, because I'm going to be honest with you. Republicans, it's a joke. The party is a joke. All of it's a joke. They're all crazy. All the Republicans are crazy. I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a single, the older I get, the more and more I'm starting to realize Southern Democrats are probably more conservative and abide by the official Republican platform more so than the Republicans here in Illinois do. I'm not kidding you. I mean, these Republicans are insane. And I don't think that this is ever going to stop. We'll have to see. We'll have to end campaign slush funds for legal defense. Obviously, we've got to unseal the secrets of powerful people. And we've got to try to take our state back by exposing them. All right, I want to shift gears. Let's get off Michael Madigan. I want to go to a tiny little town in McLean County. It's the village of Anchor. Love the village of Anchor, but this was a devastating loss. And it delivered a 15-year prison sentence. And this is a painful reminder of where our state, our country is headed. This was a tragedy in Anchor, and this isn't Chicago. This isn't some gang-plagued war zone. This is Anchor, Illinois. Anchor, Illinois, it's a population of probably not even 200. And this is the kind of stuff that goes on. This is the kind of place where most people go to move, and it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's surrounded by cornfields, right? And you wouldn't think that there is poisonous drugs, and you wouldn't think that these broken policies would reach these little tiny communities, but it did. These policies reached Anchor, Illinois, the state policies, and it took a life. So let me talk about this. 32-year-old Corey Campbell, he pleaded guilty to supplying cocaine that killed a 25-year-old Dawson Bonner of Forest, Illinois. He was a young man, somebody's son, gone. And for what? A high, a sale, a few bucks. I mean, the judge, William Yoder, handed out a 15-year sentence to Campbell. This is the maximum under Illinois law for drug delivery. But here's what should make you sit up and scream at the sky. This guy was originally charged with not just drug delivery, but drug-induced homicide. This was a Class 6 felony, carrying up to 30 years. So this guy only got 15. Prosecutors, they dropped that charge and they made a plea deal. Now, let me remind you, a young man is dead. 25-year-old Dawson Bonner. And a young man died. The supplier was facing 30 years. They let him off with 15 years and they cut him a deal. So this is the legacy of soft on crime thinking in Illinois. Okay, so this is soft on crime thinking playing itself out. This is what happens when prosecutors prioritize convenience over consequences. Okay, the system signals that drug dealers, even those that supply products that ultimately kill people, they can be cut a deal and they can get out years. I mean, he got his sentence cut in half. Okay, that's not justice, that's surrender. And what happened? No accountability. That's ultimately what happened. He's going to get out in 15 years, which I mean is an intense sentence, but he was going to get 30. He killed this guy. Gave him poison. This is a life that was taken. Dawson Bonner, and I understand. I mean, his overdose was on him a little bit, but he didn't overdose in a vacuum, right? He didn't get poisoned by accident. He died because another man sold him a deadly substance. And instead of throwing the book at him, the court offered him a handshake and a lighter sentence. And that's not compassion. This is collapse. This is the same Illinois where woke legislators, they pass laws protecting criminals. They kneecap police. They name laws after killers who throw people down elevator shafts. We talked about that yesterday. There was a law where they named it after Eddie Thomas, who threw somebody down an elevator shaft and was a member of like a black gang. It was called, I don't know what it was called. It was like a Black Power gang or something like that. Where's the war on drugs back in the 80s, 90s? This would have been a slam dunk drug homicide. Slam dunk in the 80s and 90s. Now, we're too busy reimagining justice, and we never actually deliver it for the victims. We were told that the war on drugs is racist. We were told that drug dealers are victims. We're told that harm reduction was never the answer, or was the answer to reduce the harm that we do to convicts and to reduce harmful sentencing or whatever. We're told that that was the answer. But here's the harm that played itself out. The 25-year-old is in the ground. And the dealer, he's going to be out, probably out before 15 years. He probably will be out in less than 13 years on good behavior. Let's be real here. He's probably not going to serve the whole 15. Corey Campbell, is he going to change in prison? Ask yourself this. Or is he just going to come out smarter, tougher, and ready to go and run the game again and kill somebody else? I don't know. We'll have to see. But Dawson Bonner, that's the name that's lost in all of this. We're always talking about criminals and second chances and their circumstances, but we never really talk about how Dawson, this kid, is never going to get a second chance again. He's dead. His family gets a funeral. That's it. And the community gets this big hole in their heart. And I just want to be very clear. This 25-year-old man, he had hopes, plans, dreams, a future, and it's dead because of this poison. And somebody made the choice to profit off of destruction. Okay. And this justice system made a choice to lighten those consequences for those actions. He chose to profit from destruction. That's an action he chose. And I just want to be clear that this is not like a Chicago thing. This is happening in every small town in Illinois. Anchor, Illinois. This is a town of 200 people, maybe. I mean, crime is here. Crime is where you are at. We got to stop allowing these prosecutors to strike deals with killers. Okay. And if we don't stop these prosecutors from striking these deals, more lives are going to be lost. More futures are not going to be had. And we're not going to have any more peace in our communities. So it's time to bring back a real war on drugs, back to the 80s and 90s. I believe that. Throw the book at them. No more plea deals for drug-induced homicide. Come on. I mean, no more restorative justice buzzwords. While families are burying their children, I'm done with the justice buzzwords, the restorative justice. I'm done with it. Injustice impacted individuals. Instead of referring to this guy as the criminal he is, he's a criminal. He's an offender. And we need to take back our towns from Chicago to Anchor to everywhere in between. We need to take them back, and we need to fight for our communities. Anchor might just be this tiny little village, and you might not even know where it's at on a map. But the lesson here is that this case is massive. No town is too small for this to happen. No community is immune to this. We need to start demanding accountability from our prosecutors, from our legislators, and stop this poison from spreading. I want to shift gears. I do want to talk about leftist politicians. They want you to believe that the Los Angeles riots are totally peaceful. This is hilarious. Maxine Waters is one of those leftists. Okay, there's a little something called social media, by the way. Social media makes it very possible for us to see what exactly is going on in these communities, or in this city, like LA, and now it's spread to Chicago and it's spread to Dallas. There's major cities, and the American people are not buying it when Maxine Waters tells them to disbelieve their eyes. Don't believe what you see on social media. The American people aren't buying it. She's clearly delusional, and Speaker Mike Johnson had no choice but to roll his eyes when a reporter had asked him about Maxine Waters. And we are going to be playing Maxine Waters' clip here, because she quite literally said, oh, well, don't believe your eyes. Don't believe everything you see on social media. There is no violence going on. We're going to get to Maxine Waters here in just a second, but take a listen to Mike Johnson and look at his eye roll. This is beautiful.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is your reaction to Congresswoman Maxine Waters repeatedly saying that there has been no violence in the LA riots? And do you believe that Democrats are making a mistake by not talking about what's really going on here?
Clearly, the Democrats are making a mistake by taking the wrong side here, and I'm just going to, in my Southern gentlemanly way, say bless her heart to Maxine Waters. I don't even know how to comment on Maxine Waters anymore. It's madness. I'm going to be charitable and leave it right there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is your reaction to?
I love it. The eye roll was everything for me. I was like, yes. So this is what Maxine Waters had said. Quote, so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point. You all don't think that somehow because they called out the National Guard that there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. I went from downtown detention back out into the community talking to people. What happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened out in Inglewood. So she's quite literally saying that, you're missing the point. There was no violence. National Guard wasn't called because there was violence. National Guard was called because there was no violence. And they wanted to create, Democrats are truly conspiracy theorists. They call you the conspiracy theorist. Come on now. This was a conspiracy theory. Okay. No, where they're like, oh, well, they called out the National Guard and the military because they wanted it to make it look like Donald Trump wanted to make it look like there was violence. No, the National Guard was called because you guys couldn't handle all the violence that was happening. So here she is. I want to play this clip. She tells you, don't believe what you saw on camera. There really wasn't any violence. Let's take a listen to this. Here we go.
Who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw. Protests, and even those who were.
Wow. Just a few instances that you saw. So she needs to get it in her head. How stupid does she think that you are? Okay. There's an overwhelming amount of footage out there that shows that this is not a peaceful protest. This is a riot. This is a vicious, violent riot. This is insurrection. This is organized. They're providing aid and abetting foreign nationals to take over the country. Remember when I talked about this a couple of years ago and I said, the open border, what we're going to wind up having is sleeper cells. Sleeper cells being that, in these big major metropolitan type cities, they're going to become awake and they're going to try to overtake the country. I think that's what's going on here. This is a few incidents, she said. It's not just a few incidents, and that's a dangerous lie. Just because you believe that no human is illegal doesn't make it morally acceptable to condone violence. Okay, I get that you have this strange ideology that human beings can't do illegal things, but they can. And I understand that you're pursuing a political agenda, but all of that does not make it morally acceptable to condone violence. Agreeing with the rioters, I don't know what or agreeing with whatever the issue they're looting over, they're burning over, agreeing with those people, that's not going to help anybody. They're harming people, they're destroying property. And it's safe to say that she's only sympathetic to chaos caused by these unhinged individuals, and she's only sympathetic to those individuals, and she condones it. I mean, I think it's safe to say that she's only sympathetic to the people who want the chaos, the people who are unhinged. And the fact that she presents herself as some sort of moral authority here on immigration policy, and she defends the actions of criminals, and I think that tells you all you need to really know about Maxine Waters. So, yeah, she's cuckoo. Yeah, I'll take some of your chats. God's blessing to all. I appreciate you being here, Henry. Kenneth, he says, a man died because of his actions, so let's blame someone else. Sounds like accountability to me. So I was talking about the anchor issue, and I wanted to take Kenneth's comment here. I understand. Yes, 100%. He took the drugs. He was the one who overdosed. But we have to understand that had he not died, we should have punished him as well. I say 30 years to the people who are caught with possession as well as dealing, maybe slightly less than dealing, just possession, not intent to distribute. They should be sentenced as well. But as a result of this guy's actions, somebody died, really. And his own actions, he died as well. But we have to hold the people who are still here accountable. Okay. He was held accountable. He died. Okay. So that's what happened to that guy, the guy who took the drugs, the 25-year-old. But we shouldn't be bargaining with these people who deal drugs. And this is a tiny little community. This isn't like a gang plagued city like Chicago. This is a tiny little community, and we need to speak very, very loudly in these tiny communities that, hey, we don't allow for that type of stuff here. And to work out a plea bargain with the guy who was dealing, and he's probably going to get out in 13 years on good behavior. I think that that's wrong, because at the end of the day, somebody's dead. And they were going for drug-induced homicide, but they decided to not do that. And we used to do that in the 80s and 90s. I do want to shift gears. Let's get to bailouts, mascots, and madness. What Springfield got wrong this past legislative session. I do want to get to that. Plus, Riley Gaines responding to Simone Biles and accepting her apology. So we're going to get to all of that. And like I said, Maxine Waters, I believe what I see with my eyes. Actually, I could play this clip here. I am going to play this clip. This is some of the riots that you probably see on your social media. And this just goes to show you that this is not violence. There is everything going on in LA is violence. I don't know what else you'd call this. Take a listen. Here we go.
Holy cow, they're throwing bricks at the police. Holy cow, they're throwing.
This guy's like dodging like bricks flying through the air. I mean, what else would you call that? That's violence. And I don't know, she tells you not to believe what you see with your eyes clearly on social media. I mean, come on. And that's what they're mad about, is that mainstream media is dead. And I find it hilarious though, because mainstream media, we talked about ABC while all the violence was going on. Yeah, the reporter, the script, and side by side he was narrating what was going on, and it was like saying, yeah, people are just but it's just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. It's whatever. Like, do you not realize there's a split screen, my guy? Like, what do you mean? Like, how does one have fun watching cars burn? So let's shift gears. I do want to talk about what went on and what Springfield got wrong this past legislative session, because there was a kind of like a town hall hosted by Regan Deering, Sally Turner, and Bill Howder. The spring session has wrapped up, folks. So the dust is settling, and let me tell you, there is no shortage of ridiculousness that went on. They had scare tactics, they had tax threats, unfunded mandates, woke posturing, all rolled up into one hot political mess. Don't worry, I'm here to break it down for you. So let's start with a big red flag waving over the Windy City. This is the Chicago transit system. We've talked about that. They're in deep financial trouble. How deep? Try $770 million budget hole by 2026. And their answer, well, let's raise taxes on the entire state. Let's cry poverty. Let's try to get a bailout. Classic. That's like classic Democrat way. Now, I've heard that some of these people within the Chicago transit system are getting paid millions of dollars, like getting paid very, very handsome salaries, like $300,000 a year salary. And just for your perspective, like the president of the United States gets $400,000 a year, right? Something around there. And yes, of course, I know that there's benefits and things like that. But come on, like $300,000 and you're working one transit system, like one city's transit system, and I just don't get it. These are bloated salaries, and that's why you probably got the $770 million budget hole. State Senator Sally Turner from Beeson, she is the voice of reason here, and she called out the obvious. She said, look, Chicago transit agencies in this town hall, she talked about how they were threatening, of course, to lay off 40% of their workers, and they were going to have to lay off those workers and cut the services. And they were pretty much like strong arming and saying, you better give us a bailout or else we're going to lay off all of these workers and we're going to cut our services. Do it. See if I give a damn, right? But as Turner put it, she said, that's not going to happen. Why? Because they're counting on Illinois taxpayers from every corner of this state to pick up the tab, and they're fear mongering, and that's just plain and simple. Yeah, I mean, I say, don't give them a bailout. It's probably going to happen, probably next legislative session, or even as soon as this summer, where they're going to give these people a bailout, the Chicago transit system. And I think that's just wrong. Why would you have somebody in Decatur, Illinois, paying for Chicago transit system? It makes absolutely no sense. State Representative Regan Deering nailed it. She said her constituents in Central Illinois are asking the right question. Why would we be on the hook for Chicago's dysfunction? It's not my fault that there's a bunch of people on bloated salaries in this system, probably why it was created in the first place, for buddies, cronies, to be getting these bloated salaries who then turn around and give it right back to unions, give it right back to the legislators and give it right back to their Democrat pals, right? So Representative Bill Howder chimed in with more truth. He says that the Chicago transit mess isn't about money, it's about management. Yeah, well, and I think that the system is just probably bloated. It's probably overgrown. It's inefficient. And people think that it's all negligence. It's not. It's by design. It's the same thing in the school districts. It's all about the pensions and securing their pensions, because we have an unfunded pension liability because the state of Illinois is stupid. And now you've got people screaming for tax raises or tax rates to go up every single year, your property taxes to go up. The schools ask you for sales tax referendums. They continue to ask you for more money. Why? Because they're freaking out about their pensions, because we have an unfunded pension liability. So like everything, this is by design. The system isn't just like inefficient. It's not just about like management, and like it's not just about poor management, really. I think it's by design, and it's these people who are at the tippity top of these organizations and these systems, for example, in the school districts, who are best pals and are pretty good friends with all of the politicians, and they secure these $250,000 like salaries, like $20,000 or $200,000 salaries, $300,000 salaries, and they're making tons of money. And like, hey, in exchange, we're going to make sure the taxpayer money keeps flowing in order to pay you this. We're going to keep at it as long as you turn around and you support our causes and you get the union to come out and support our candidates. The Illinois Teachers Union is absolutely insane. I'll probably get to this clip of the National Education Association president. There's a clip out there. I'll get to it here in just a second, but let me wrap this up. The state is going to probably hand out a blank check to bail these people out. We keep kicking down this can. What winds up happening is we give them a blank check and then they mismanage it again. Really, they take that money and they continue paying these bloated salaries and these cronies of the Democrat Party down the road, but we're going to wind up having to do it again, bailing it out again, because it's just not a sustainable model to prop up the public sector and prop up all of these people in the public sector. I want to talk about the $1.50 delivery tax insanity. I'm just wrapping up the legislative session for you. There was a town hall that Howder, Sally Turner did along with Regan Deering. They said, now brace yourself for this one. They said that they were wanting to put this $1.50 delivery fee on items. So whether it's a $3,000 TV you get delivered from Amazon or a $10 pizza, you would have to pay the $1.50. That's the same tax no matter what. It's a $1.50 rate. That's crazy. It's lazy. It's bad policy. Now, the good thing is that didn't happen. Imagine ordering a pizza and then you're paying this $1.50 in a delivery fee. And that $1.50 is going directly to fund Chicago when you live 3 hours away from Chicago. This is the kind of tax people into submission nonsense people are fleeing from. That's why people are fleeing from this state, because they're taxing the sunrise, they're taxing the trees, they're taxing the air you breathe here in this state. So Chicago's falling apart. Don't worry. The General Assembly found time to focus on mascots. Okay, so they did find time to deal with that. They didn't want to cut anything. They didn't want to address the mismanagement of the Chicago transit system. They much rather would focus on the Native American mascots from schools statewide. So Representative Deering, she called this out in the forum, this town hall. It was a digital town hall. She said that the guy who proposed this law to outlaw, Native American mascots, he didn't even have a school in his district that would have been affected by this, by this bill that outlawed Native American mascots. So this is your typical out of touch virtue signaling type legislation from the left. This is just another example of politicians trying to micromanage your town, your schools, from their cushy Springfield office. They've got no idea what it's like in your community. Because now there's going to be 90 schools, and let's not forget this, there's going to be 90 schools that are going to be forced to change their logos, their signatures, their uniforms. All of this comes at a cost, by the way. It's a very expensive, unfunded mandate shoved down the throats of these small communities for what? Really, it really doesn't matter. I mean, Native American mascots, I don't think that really Native Americans are offended by it that badly. And it's just to feel good. It's just for virtue signaling. Why don't you do something actually for the Native American population and the entire Illinois population, which is to cut taxes, right? So, folks, this is not how you govern. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of money. They're focused on mascots. And they're not even addressing the unfunded pension liability that's costing you thousands of dollars in property taxes, because the schools keep asking you for tax referendums to get passed every single election cycle. So credit where credit's due. Good thing that this delivery fee thing didn't pass right now. It's going to come back, though. The assisted suicide bill did not pass. Thank goodness it stalled. Illinois has got no business promoting death as a solution to suffering. Life is sacred, period. Folks, we're not God, okay? And let's talk about this so-called energy omnibus bill. It didn't make it through. That's good. But Illinois can't afford more backroom energy boondoggles that spike your rates and kill jobs. We really just need to focus on nuclear. I did an entire show on nuclear. We need to lift the moratorium on building more nuclear plants because nuclear is actually clean. And it provides right now over half of the energy here in the state of Illinois. Okay, we need to build more of that. The private sector, Meta, the Clinton nuclear plant, they just struck a deal with that plant. So they're seeing what the public sector doesn't see, is that nuclear is the future. What do we learn from all of this here going on? We need to learn that Democrats are more interested in virtue signaling. They're more interested in tax hikes. They're more interested in fake emergencies rather than real reform. That this is an emergency. The Chicago transit system is an emergency. Most likely people aren't even using the Chicago transit system because they're afraid they're going to get murdered on the train, right? But we need to focus on cutting waste. We need to demand efficiency. We need to address the pension, unfunded pension liability. We need to give control to our local school boards. They're the ones who are capable of making these decisions about their Native American mascots if they feel so led to do so. And there's a reason why I say Illinois is the most corrupt state in the nation. It's because they're so busy. Their priorities are all out of whack, and they're so busy on this virtue signaling nonsense. And they're not actually making the state efficient. And you're left picking up the tab. So I want to get to this. Riley Gaines, she is actually accepting Simone Biles' apology. Okay, now the left, they always resort to insults and they go after people personally. Why do they do that? It's because they lack a point, they lack facts, they lack logic on their side. And this is why Simone Biles decided to go after Riley Gaines, because of her dedication to the integrity of women's sports. And that didn't go over very well for Simone Biles because, like I said, this is a, 70-30, not even 70, 80-20 issue where 80% of Americans believe that, hey, men shouldn't be in women's sports. So she said this on Twitter. She says, quote, "I accept Simone's apology for the personal attacks, including the ones where she body shamed me. I know she knows what this feels like. She's still the greatest female gymnast of all time." So very, very mature response from Riley Gaines here. A couple of things. Sports are inclusive by nature. Anyone can play sports. Anyone should play sports. It's good to, similar to running. A lot of people have access to sports. You can really just grab a ball and play soccer, right? It's pretty easy to play sports. You can do it in your backyard. Sports are, by its very nature, pretty inclusive. Anybody can really play sports. Now, competition, by its very definition, is exclusive. The idea of competitive equity, making sure that everybody is equal outcomes in competition, that's totally nonsensical. Riley Gaines, she put it like this. Secondly, the boys are publicly humiliating girls. To suggest that women and girls should stay silent or ignore a boy who is publicly hurting or humiliating them is wrong. Boys playing against girls. I remember when I was a kid and I was in gym class, there was this boy who would constantly just throw the ball, whip the ball as hard as he could at me. I don't know what it was. Maybe he liked me. But he'd throw the ball and I broke my wrist once. This kid had it out for me, I guess. Threw the ball again. I broke my ankle falling down to the ground. I was a really clumsy child as well. But boys humiliating girls publicly on the field, whatever sport you're in, that's something that women can't ignore. It's abuse, it's harm, and sometimes men can't control themselves because competition is very different when it comes to male sports and the way men view competition. Women, they're not as, I would say, competitive. They just don't tend to be as competitive as males. When you put them all together, it's a recipe for disaster. So Riley Gaines, she says, this is, lastly, I agree with you that the blame is on the lawmakers and leaders at the top, precisely why I am suing the NCAA. And I support candidates who vow to stand with women and craft laws that prohibit men from being in women's sports. I joined President Donald Trump at the signing of his executive order. I didn't see you there. Championing this effort with your platform. Women's sports can't be used as an excuse for girls to center the feelings and validation of men and boys. Like women's, like my sport is not for your feelings and for your validation. Okay. My sport is for us to compete and for us to play. That's it. So she goes on in the Twitter post. She says, I welcome you to the fight to support fair sports and a future for female athletes. Little girls deserve the same shot to achieve what you have achieved, Simone Biles. So how did this all kind of start, this drama? Well, Simone Biles, she apologized. So that was Riley Gaines' reaction to Simone Biles' apology. Now, she criticized University of Kentucky swimmer and women's sports advocate Riley Gaines over the weekend for speaking out against the Minnesota high school softball team, which included a trans-identified male player that won the state championship. Okay, so this happened in Minnesota softball team, and he won the state championship or whatever. So Biles had responded to a tweet on Friday over the weekend from Gaines, in which the former collegiate swimmer, Riley Gaines, noted that the comments on the photo of the winning team, which included a biological boy, had been disabled. Okay, so something about this trans-identified individual is also disabled. And Biles responded, and she replied to Riley Gaines saying, all of this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating an avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe transgender category in all sports. Now, I've said this before. If they want their own category, I really don't mind that at all. Biles in a separate post said, bully someone your own size. This trans-identified individual, I guess, had some sort of, he was a biological boy, but also had been disabled. I don't know. She said, bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male. What? So this is wild. Biles, she's clearly on the wrong side here. She's advocating for men. I don't care if the guy's got a disability. Wound up winning, I guess. That team, the softball team, wound up winning against, obviously the other team where they were all females and the male won. She's clearly on the wrong side here, and she compared Riley Gaines to a man, by the way, while also advocating for men to compete against women in female sports. So nonetheless, the backlash here was very, very telling for Biles because she was forced to apologize to Riley Gaines for calling her a man. Okay. Simone Biles, she claims that all of this is about fairness of women's sports. Yet she has yet to adequately prove that this is about fairness in women's sports. This is men competing in women's sports. That's, by its very definition, is unfair because of the biological advantage. And I really don't care if, it's sad that he's disabled, but just because he's disabled doesn't mean that he doesn't have a biological advantage still over these women. And that just goes to show you how strong this biological advantage is. Gaines said we can only hope that she starts fighting for fair sports, in supporting fair sports and a future for female athletes, because little girls deserve the same shot that Simone Biles had, and that's so true. She got to be arguably the best gymnast of all time, female gymnast of all time, and the only reason why she got there was because there were no trans men who competed against her, or trans men pretending to be women who competed against her, and she was able to get to this insane level of being the best gymnast in the world because she didn't have this biological advantage over her when she was competing. So she should advocate for females. And I don't know what she was doing. She was going after Riley Gaines, calling her a man, saying that you should go after somebody her own size. And I get it. The biological boy was disabled, but like at the end of the day, you know, there was biological advantage. And at the end of the day, like, I don't really even care if he had the advantage, like a physical advantage over. We need to separate boys and girls in sports, period. Anyway, that's going to be today's show. I appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. And tomorrow morning, we will be back at it bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you so much.